You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by AKUNA Capital. Known as the new wave in tech and trading, AKUNA is a leading derivatives market maker in traditional asset classes. As one of the first trading firms to make markets on Bitcoin futures, AKUNA is also proud to be an innovator in the cryptocurrency space. Through a collaborative flow of knowledge between developers, quants, and traders, AKUNA designs and implements their own low-latency technologies, trading strategies, and mathematical models. To learn more about our rapidly growing firm, please visit akunacapital.com. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it's time for the Crypto Rundown, our second episode of this fun program where we break down the exciting, ever-moving world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. My name is Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. So glad you guys can join us for episode 2. Episode 1 is getting all kinds of great feedback. We love to hear from you guys, love the topics, the suggestions, and get all the feedback. It's been fantastic. We're still kind of going through all of it, but we love to hear from you guys. Keep those comments, questions, and suggestions coming. We do indeed love to hear from you guys. And joining me on the program today, another newcomer to the show and indeed to the network, but he won't be a stranger. He is Andrew QUINE, the senior trader and head of digital assets for the OTC group over there at AKUNA Capital. Andrew, welcome to the Crypto Rundown.
Mark, thanks for having me. It's great to join the show today.
You sound great. You sound like you're right down the street as opposed to half a world away. Andrew is joining us from, are you in Sydney?
We are, yeah. I'm in our new Sydney office. We just moved to the Sydney CBD yesterday.
Yeah, I heard you just moved offices today or yesterday, so I'm glad you can get at least get your phone lines working in time, which is a good kind of thing we need here.
They're up and running.
Yeah, on the show. Well, Andrew, this is your first time on the show and indeed on the network. Why don't you go ahead and do what we do with all of our first-timers here. Give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background in the financial markets and what it is you do day-to-day at AKUNA.
Absolutely. So I joined the AKUNA Digital Assets team about a year ago. Prior to that, I spent most of my career working for proprietary market-making firms, trading equity options. So most of the big Asian exchanges, and primarily Hong Kong stock options. We sort of market make on close to 20 crypto or digital asset exchanges, and then as well as that, we have an OTC business that trades spot derivatives and I suppose options fits within that as well. So most of what we do is electronic via exchanges. I think Toby went through we participate in CBOE and CME and a raft of the other, I suppose, internet-based exchanges. And then more and more we're starting to see OTC flows both in the spot and in various derivatives.
Oh, well, Andrew, I feel bad. You didn't get a chance to join us last week. Toby and I had a nice look back at the whole crazy rock'em sock'em year that was 2018 from a crypto perspective. We don't have quite that much time this week because we have a lot to get to from this past week and even today in terms of crypto trading activity. But before we get to that, I want to give you a chance to play ball as well. So if you have maybe some thoughts, some general trends that resonated to you as you look back on 2018 and the year in crypto, sir, now is the time. The floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, 2018 was the year that the crypto market sobered up a little bit. 2017 was pretty wild, and 2018, some of the headlines that you would see have massive price impact in 2017 started to not move markets at all. So I think one of the phenomena people saw in 2017 was anytime Coinbase listed a new coin or token, you'd see massive price action there. Any even tangential positive headline seemed to cause big rallies. So anytime any kind of coin or token announced an enterprise deal, we're doing X with Microsoft or we're doing X with some kind of big corporate, you'd see a big rally. And even towards the end of the year with the backed announcement with physically settled Bitcoin futures and the announcement of the RSX exchange, which I think previously, definitely in 2017, they would have seen big rallies. We didn't see that kind of price action. So the market, I think it's definitely sobered up a little bit. The other big trend we've seen is that the ICO activity is really dried up, and the flow-on effect from that is a lot of these ICOs raised Ethereum, and the flow-on effect has been we've seen a big drop-off in the ETH price. Obviously, that's been really interesting for us. We trade ETH options OTC as well as trading a heap of different futures and Ethereum on a heap of different spot exchanges. But for me, that would be the two main themes of the year. That the market probably stopped overreacting and the hype fell out of the market a little bit, and all the ICO activity that was so crazy in the back half of 2017 dried up.
Yeah, you're right. Those are two market trends, Maybe the latter one, maybe a little bit good because the large percentage, I saw some data, I think it was coming out of the journal, a stunning number of those ICOs were, shall we say, dubious in nature. So maybe some of that going away is not the worst thing. At the same time, and you're right, at the beginning of the year, we saw so much headline-driven news. Hot and heavy days. Interesting stuff about the Ether OTC options. I didn't know about that. I think we have a listener question that dovetails with that a little bit. So maybe I'll save my thoughts on that for a little bit as we get going into our first segment here. It's time to dive into our Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trading activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown. This is the portion of the show where we break down the world of Bitcoin in all of its many facets. And what a topsy-turvy world that has been. Just since our last show, we moved it from Friday to Monday, listeners, so it's been about 10 days as opposed to our usual week in between episodes. And what a tumultuous 10-day period we have. Of course, that's pretty much the whole length of 2019 pretty much so far from a trading perspective. And we saw a lot going into last show. Of course, the story was, hey, will Bitcoin rally back north of 4,000 and then maintain it? Will it maintain it? Well, spoiler alert, the answer, at least in the near term to that, is no. We saw a big turn in price action back on January 11th, so a few days back into last week. Some people are referring to that as the January correction out there in Bitcoin. What drove it? What sparked it? There's a lot of rumors, a lot of high-flying things. Some things were certain. We saw a hack of ETH Classic. That is, if you're not familiar with that, Ethereum Classic, the 18th largest cryptocurrency by market cap out there. We saw a so-called 51% attack going on out there. That just seemed to feed into the notion that so many crypto coins are susceptible to this type of activity, and it kind of just kicked off a sell-off. We also saw some rumors out there of a big whale moving some size ether to the tune, I think around somehow 68, 70 million, somewhere in that range, onto an exchange. That seemed to intensify some of the downward activity. And it doesn't take a lot to really get those bears, get their claws out in some of these products. A lot of interesting other rumors have been swirling around that. Speaking of the whales, really quickly I want to hit on this. There was an interesting piece recently in Bloomberg where they were talking about one of the big talking points in Bitcoin for a while has been a large number of inactive accounts, a lot of so-called whales. They're calling them the hodlers, the hold on for dear life type of accounts out there who haven't touched their accounts in quite a while, and their data anywhere from 6 months to 2.5 years. A lot of those accounts sprang to life. Since October, which is when this data really starts kicking in, they saw what they're terming these whales, these longer-term whales, starting to kick in, transacting in the past month with about 60% of Bitcoin's current circulating supply actually transacting out there. So the number of inactive Bitcoin accounts that weren't touching anything, dropped from about 3.8 million going into Q4, beginning of Q4, to about 2.8 million in late December. So a 1 million reduction in just the span of a couple of months. And they're seeing the supply of active Bitcoin as a result up 40% since this past summer. Increase in flow and activity out there may lead to more price swings as a result. That causes you some consternation. Maybe don't, because similar analysis coming out of a group that was this Delphi Digital. They noted that some of these older, longer-term bulls may have exhausted a lot of their selling efforts over the past year, looking at some of this data they have in terms of what they term unspent transaction outputs, UTXOs, indicating maybe once those start ticking up, they're seeing actually a bit of an accumulation mode. And last time you saw something like this was around the end of 2014, which those of you who haven't been playing these markets since then, that was one of the last dramatic bear periods out there in the crypto space, and they saw this accumulation period kick in. So maybe there is a silver lining, a light at the end of the tunnel out there for you, those of you who are maybe crypto bulls and maybe a little bit nervous in this current environment. Andrew, it's been a topsy-turvy, tumultuous 10 days since the last time we did this show. I mentioned January 11th, really an inflection point for recent weeks. I haven't even gotten to the last 24 hours over the weekend of trading, which was also tumultuous. What's been coming on your radar? What's been coming across the OTC crypto desk at AKUNA? What's been kind of catching your eye over the past week to 10 days?
Yeah, Mark, as you mentioned, the price action's been really interesting. I think from the OTC side, what's really interesting to us at the moment is the options volumes picking up. So sort of from around that Christmas period where the implied vols peaked, in Bitcoin close to 100, we've seen those implied vols prior to the Jan 11 move that you mentioned. Those implied vols were off about 20 points, and it was pretty much one way. They sort of just, little gaps here and there, but just generally straight line off over that couple of week period. And those vols have picked back up, particularly the front end. And we're seeing a little bit of divergence of opinion on BTC vol, which, obviously as a market maker we enjoy. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of uncertainty around the moment. I think a really interesting options trade we're seeing at the moment is the interest in the downside puts continues to pick up. So the skew continues to tend toward the puts, which we're seeing a lot of action in the 1 to 2K strikes. So more of a real, I suppose, like a disaster or doomsday kind of hedging there.
Yeah, those are substantial. It seems like so long ago that we crossed 1,000. It actually wasn't that long ago, right? It was about a year and change ago. But you're right. That sounds now, in hindsight, the 1,000 strike sounds pretty cataclysmic for the crypto bulls out there.
Look, it does. But yeah, from an options trading perspective, it's been really interesting because there is that divergence of opinion out there. So we are seeing plenty of volume go through. The other thing that's interesting is we have this week the Ethereum hard fork, an upgrade that they're undergoing. So ETH Gamma has been popular. People are expecting price action, and frankly, that price action has been happening ahead of the event. We saw ETH rally really hard up to 150 and it's come back off quite hard, back down below 120 in the last couple of days. So certainly, maybe some of that was priced in, but the gamma for ETH definitely remains really popular. So at the moment we're seeing a lot of interest in the options, the OTC options.
Kind of hard to argue against having some gamma in your back pocket right now, huh? That's if there's a market you want to have it in right now, I think it's hard to argue against Bitcoin. It's moving. We were joking. I think Andrew was joking on the last show that for a while there, mid to late November of last year, Bitcoin was effectively as volatile as about a T-bill, right? It was somewhere at around 20%. It was nothing exciting at all. And now all of a sudden it has sparked back to life. The volatility is back. The price action is certainly back. That is interesting. So it sounds like you're saying people are obviously not surprising maybe that they're leaning to the puts, but maybe the fact that they're leaning so far out of the money, it seems like people are hitting us up with levels now. We have some analysis coming in a little bit. People are looking at today's price action and recent price action. Where's the support? 3,500? Is it 3,300? Is it 3,000? And it sounds like you're saying there's a significant interest in the 2,000 and 1,000 levels, which, like I mentioned, may be upsetting to some of our diehards, the hodler community out there, Andrew.
It's certainly not all one way, so perhaps that will give them a little bit of solace. I think, I suppose on those underlying moves, at the moment we're definitely seeing vol tick up on the down ticks, which is interesting, which points to the fact that that put skew will likely remain higher in the short to medium term.
And was January 11th an inflection point for you guys in the volume as well? Did the phone start ringing off the hook? Or was it kind of a slow and steady drumbeat? What have you guys been seeing on the desk there?
It was a little bit slow. The market was actually a little bit slow to react, so the vols didn't pop immediately. But both vol and I suppose interest and volume popped in the back end of last week. But generally options volumes have been strong. Seems to have been a little bit quiet over the Christmas New Year period. But start of the year has been really strong on that side.
Well, that's to be expected. Who's slinging crypto over Christmas? A savage, that's all. But you're right. This has been interesting, a very tumultuous period over here. We started the year, is it going to break 4,000? We started the year right around 3,800 in Bitcoin. Broke 4,000. Everyone thought, okay, this is it. We're going back on the upside where we're kind of starting a new pattern out there. And then now we've seen it retreating down about 7%. On the year, as we're looking right now, the futures over there on CME, about 36.45, up about 10 handles net on the day. But it's been a tumultuous even 24 to 48 hours over there. We talked on the last show, a lot of the volume is coming in the non-U.S. hours, even the CME future, roughly half of their volume coming into non-traditional, non-U.S. hours. And that's where we're seeing a lot of action, as well. We saw Bitcoin dropping well below the 3,500 level. Again, that got people starting to do some more hand-wringing. Oh no, is this going to be it? So interesting stuff there in terms of Bitcoin on the year. That got people talking about, where is the support? Where is the next support? Some people had thought 3,300. I've never really got a chance to break that. And of course, 3,000. And then the warning signs, everyone who looks at this, including talking to some people over there, they post on our site there, the cryptopatterns.com, I believe. Yes, Crypto Patterns. And they were talking about looking at, if we hit that support at 3,000 and then if you start breaking through that, that's where they're starting to see, and a lot of people are saying they're starting to see some more orders, buying volume really south of that we'll probably see some stuff kick in. But it could be some interesting and tumultuous periods over the next week or so, certainly till the next time we gather here together on the show. It was interesting, too. There was a lot of hand-wringing over the weekend. Volume is dropping on this sell-off over the weekend. And in that 48-hour or so period, we did see the volume on the crypto market. Remember, they quoted a lot in, notional 15 billion trading down to about 13 billion as the price fell and dropped below 3,600 down to 35. But now in the last 24 hours or 12 hours, we've seen the volume kind of recover a little bit. So that hasn't been as much of a narrative. Coming into today, let's see the futures at CME doing about 4,400. They've been kind of the other end of the story as volume has been a little bit hit and miss. And some of the other products, the futures seem to be pretty resilient, all things considered. It's like about total of close to 5,000 contracts on the tape today. Last week we saw 4,400 on the 11th, which was the big day. 6,000 actually on the 10th. So the bigger day actually was on the 10th for the futures, and then the 3,900, 4,400 on the 8th, and 2,800 on the 7th over there. So it has been interesting to watch this vacillation around these price levels. I think everyone's kind of watching that key 3,500 level and north. Andrew, you mentioned it wasn't all one-sided. Are you seeing a fair amount of people coming in and positioning for that retracement above the 4,000 strike in the near term as well?
Yes, certainly. There's probably not as many buyers of those closer upside strikes. We certainly see interest in the further out of the money. People like to trade out of the money options on Bitcoin, especially. So, yeah, we certainly see interest in that further upside stuff in the 3 to 6 month tenor. But it depends very much on who the customer is. So I think the crypto options market at the start of 2018 and back end of 2017, when we started making markets on these options, very much dictated by speculators, and now we're seeing more and more people with a natural hedging function starting to come into the market, and it's starting to look a little bit more like a traditional commodities market where people are actually coming in to hedge. It might be they're hedging their treasury if they've raised Ethereum. They might be hedging, if they're a Bitcoin miner, they're hedging their future revenues there that are denominated in Bitcoin. So we are starting to see, more and more interest on the hedging side, whilst, obviously still plenty of people wanting to speculate as well.
Sounds like it's saying it's growing up a little bit over there, the flow over there in the crypto land. I know people who certainly would like to see that happen are the Winklevoss twins, the Winklevi, call them what you will. They've been talking a lot over the past 24 hours. They, of course, a lot of holders, core holders of the underlying Bitcoin. They're behind the Gemini exchange, which has partnered with the SIBO on their Bitcoin future, the one that really hasn't been lighting it up pretty much over the past year. Maybe that will change in 2019. So honestly, a lot of people really looking for that. Most people think the CME is going to win that horse race there, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. They've been chiming in over the last 24 hours, doing a big marketing blitz to try to, some people saying they're trying to talk up their core book again, but their notion they're coming out there, kind of to your point, Andrew, of is crypto finally growing up? They're trying to get that message out there a little bit more. They're saying that cryptocurrency's growth has been impeded by negative press that associated it with criminals and a misperception that Bitcoin is totally anonymous. They have this new marketing campaign called Revolution Needs Rules, and it seems to be not so subtly aimed at the regulators, even though they won't say this, saying, hey, we need maybe better rules of engagement over here on the crypto front. So if you haven't seen that, listeners, they took out big full-page ads in the New York Times. That's where everyone goes for their crypto reading, the New York Times, and all around Wall Street area and things. This seems to be a big marketing blitz for them. Speaking of the regulators, more in your neck of the woods, just in the last couple of days here, Andrew, we see Japan. There was a rumor there as well. We can't get a Bitcoin ETF really off the ground here in the U.S. Seems like Japan, there was a rumor, I think Bloomberg even reported that Japan was in the process of potentially approving said Bitcoin ETF, which would have been an interesting thing, perhaps a bit of an inflection point there, get the Bitcoin ETF ball rolling. However, their financial services authority over there, the regulator for Japan, coming out and saying that the agency actually taking a somewhat dismissive view. They say, taking into consideration that it's difficult for us to find constructive and social significance of trading crypto asset derivatives at present, we think that there is no need for trading crypto asset derivatives at financial instruments exchanges where many market participants are able to trade, they said. So kind of maybe some of that lost in translation, maybe overly harsh. I don't know, Andrew. So it seemed like for a while there, your area, your region there, to maybe be the vanguard of the ETF, I should say the Bitcoin ETF movement, and then Japan kind of throwing water on that. Was that maybe a surprise to you guys, or was that kind of what you expected, and has that caused any resulting backlash or maybe some more consternation from your clients?
Yeah, look, that was a very somber statement, and I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, they weren't messing around there, were they?
No, not at all. Hopefully, as you said, maybe it was slightly lost in translation. We haven't seen, our clients haven't seemingly reacted to that news much here, but certainly the regulators the world over are all grappling with the same issues, and I think there's going to be continue those applications to the SEC. They're going to continue, and they're going to have to keep. At the moment they've been swatting them away, I suppose, but I don't think they're going to stop anytime soon.
What else is not going to stop, of course, is this show. We talk a lot of Bitcoin, but it's not all Bitcoin all the time, listeners. There is some other stuff out there as well, so let's get into it with the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
Where Bitcoin goes, altcoin tends to follow, though not all the time, and not certainly in all these scenarios. There are a lot of other coins out there. I mean, Bitcoin is the lion's share of the market cap, obviously, but there are a lot of coins out there. We've seen a lot of heat, a lot of interest in this Tron, the new Tron coming out there, which I have to say, just for name alone, being a child of the 80s, I find the name Tron to be fantastic. So a lot of interest in that one, as well as, of course, the old standbys of the Ether and the Litecoin and XRP. Let's look at a few of those. Ether, they're having a bit of a rough 2019 as well. They opened 2019 right around 134.65. They come into Showtime, they're right around, got 119, so they're down about over 11% for the year to date so far. The volume kind of spiking up to about 3.5 billion notional, going up back on the 11th of last week. That was kind of the inflection point out there. Also worth noting, I think it's recovered a little bit now, but coming in earlier in the day, Ether was down 5% just in the past 24 hours. So it was really taking quite a drubbing out there. I think some of that has ameliorated in the past few hours, though. Here also looking, everyone likes XRP. XRP started the year, has had a little bit more of a staid year than others. We saw volume spiking back again on the 11th, right around to 835 million. It was at 32 cents coming into this Showtime. It was around 35 cents to start the year. It's also worth noting, did drop about 2% just in the past 24 hours. Again, some of that sell-off coming back, but coming into this morning, early afternoon, things were looking a little bit more rough out there. Litecoin, another one you guys like to trade as well. That one was coming in around 31, not that long before Showtime. And that one was off. Probably the worst, off 6% over the weekend in the past 24 hours or so. That one also saw a spike of about 752 million on volume on the 11th. Not a ton, not as big of a spike as some of the others. Also worth noting that at that level, even at 31, the year to date, Litecoin's pretty much unched. One of the few of the major cryptocurrencies out there you could really say that. And we're looking at some of the technicals out here, but it didn't really see enough volume in Litecoin to really move the needle there in Litecoin. You mentioned the ETH options maybe coming and going a little bit over there. Andrew, are there any other of the major altcoin that you guys really follow a lot and even maybe considering making markets on in the future there?
Yeah, I mean, we make markets on the top 5 or 6 coins. So some of the ones you mentioned, Litecoin and Ripple, and we've seen some interesting price action there. Probably not as interesting as we saw in the last quarter of last year. I think Ripple at one point had a 100% rally in about 24 or 36 hours, which is pretty wild. At this stage, we only make options on Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's probably just not the depth in those markets, even in the underlyings themselves, to manage risk. I think Toby mentioned last week as well. You also, I think for the case in any cryptocurrency, but the information asymmetry problem is real. And as a market maker, you certainly got to try and make sure you're not on the wrong side of that. But yeah, we see the price action in those altcoins is really interesting at the moment, and correlation's ebbing and flowing too, which we think is we're seeing some interesting stuff happen there too.
Definitely. Speaking of correlation, and maybe a dubious or a scary one, there's so much talk about Bitcoin, but, the altcoin universe is expanding and exploding. We saw Tron coming in. Now a report coming out of the St. Louis Fed, so not a disreputable organization, saying that maybe the growth of altcoin, maybe that has hurt Bitcoin. They're saying here, this report, you can find it. We'll link it in our show notes. You can also find it at the St. Louis Fed. They say the majority of the research recently is centered around the altcoin market throughout 2017, how it's impacted Bitcoin. But the ultimate finding of the report, they say, is that the potential valuation of Bitcoin has indeed been hampered. A couple of takeaways here. Rather than continuing to rise to the relative to the market, the increased supply and valuation of altcoins has dampened the price and market capitalization of Bitcoin, imposing a general limitation on its growth. They quote in the report here, while Bitcoin's price is not likely to fall to zero, the prospect of the flood of altcoin competing with Bitcoin in the wealth portfolios of investors is likely to place significant downward pressure on the purchasing power of all cryptocurrencies including Bitcoin. It's an interesting viewpoint, and I encourage listeners to take a look at the full report. Andrew, this is interesting because a lot of people thought there was kind of this general growing market for crypto. There was room for a lot of these coins out here. This research from the St. Louis Fed may be suggesting otherwise, maybe suggesting that a lot of the institutional and client demand has a demand, kind of like we see for the alts category, it has a demand for crypto as a category. And if they put in a Litecoin or an XRP or an Ether, they're not going to put in a Bitcoin as a result. And so maybe they will pick one or a handful. People have wanted the crypto universe to really grow beyond Bitcoin for some time. Maybe ironically, some of that growth now maybe is turning around and hampering Bitcoin as a result. Do you buy that argument, or do you think maybe there's other things that play out there?
I probably agree with parts of that argument. I certainly think that the ICO mania of 2017 and the subsequent bear market that followed has created an overhang on Bitcoin. I think one thing that ICO mania proved was ICOs are incredibly effective way to raise an extraordinary amount of capital very, very quickly. But, a lot of those projects, I think, we'll see are ultimately going to be worthless with no real use case and certainly no adoption. I think Bitcoin, in my eyes, and sorry, I should add that our general counsel will thank me for this, but these are my views and commentary, and certainly not reflective of AKUNA's views. But at this point, I don't see any strong competitors for Bitcoin as a store of value, which still for me is the most compelling, aspect of Bitcoin. Whilst I think maybe a lot of the emerging cryptocurrencies might have captured the eyes of investors, I certainly think that Bitcoin still has a strong lead, and a strong network, and I think it will remain the dominant sort of store of value digital asset for some time.
Certainly seems that way, unless the St. Louis Fed perhaps has their way. Well, I want to get some of the listeners' questions in on here too, Andrew. But before we do, any other thoughts you want to share on altcoin, or should we just keep on rolling right on in and get the listeners on the show? What do you want to do?
Let's go to the listeners, Mark.
All right, let's do it then. It's time to answer your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, Andrew, the show's new. We're already getting a bunch of queries. Some of these are even left over from last week. Didn't get a chance to get to all of them on our inaugural show. We'll hit as many as we can here in our remaining time. Let's start things off. This is kind of related to what we were talking about earlier with Japan here, Andrew. Major Lee wants to know, do you think the SEC finally approving a Bitcoin ETF will be the thing that finally turns around the crypto market? Andrew, we've seen this before in other marketplaces. The launch of popular ETFs has gone on to solidify a marketplace, drive a lot of ancillary related trading and hedging volume in other products. You can point to SPY, you can point to a lot of the ETPs in the volatility space, feeding back into VIX. This is a cycle that has gone on and on for some time. And there are a lot of people out there, I'm sure the Winklevi included, who are really waiting with bated breath for that moment when the SEC will finally come on down from on high and bless some product with their imprimatur to go forth and become the first Bitcoin ETF. Do you think, sounds like Major Lee does here, that is the watershed moment that people are going to be waiting for in crypto, or maybe you think it's kind of overblown?
Undoubtedly, I think it'd be bullish for crypto. I think, though, it's probably a little bit too overhyped, a little bit too much focus on it at the moment. My personal view, again, is that I just don't think the surveillance and regulation are anywhere close in the market for the SEC to come out and approve an ETF. But, we're trending the right way. And, I think, as you mentioned, the Winklevi are probably leading that charge. So, doing everything right with their Gemini exchange. All through last year, we saw a huge amount of focus on any time there was a decision looming, or the SEC tend to run the clock down on these decisions and either make the decision, or which is thus far has been to reject these applications or defer their decision. And certainly in the options market, we saw a lot of interest in people coming in to buy gamma for these decisions. But yeah, I think probably the focus has been a little bit overblown so far. But fingers crossed, we'll see some positive news there maybe in the back half of this year.
Since you mentioned the Winklevi, I had a good conversation about this with Toby last week. I'd be curious to get your thoughts as well. I believe it was driven by a listener question. A listener asked us last week, were we surprised to see that the CME 5 coin contract actually outperformed the SIBO 1 coin, which is, of course, the one that they launched with Gemini. Toby and I chatted about that last week. Do you have any thoughts on that, Andrew? Were you as surprised as I certainly was, and many others out there, that the 5 coin contract is leading the race so far?
A little bit, mainly because when those contracts launched, the notional value was so great. So we thought that was going to be a little bit of a barrier to entry. Bitcoin trading up near 20,000. Even a one lot of that 5x CME contract was quite significant. Obviously, that barrier to entry is nowhere near as great as it was a year ago. But I think CME probably has more of a global kind of pull, and this is the ultimate global market. It's traded 24/7. As you mentioned, those volumes outside of US trading hours are very strong. So no, I'm not that surprised that CME have kind of continued to forge ahead there.
All right, let's see. Speaking of forging ahead, let's forge ahead with some of these questions. This person here, Andrew, looks like they might be are confusing the nature of OTC and what you guys do, but I guess it's a good thing. They want to get access to your stuff. They want to know, this is T Lee, so we got a Major Lee and a T Lee. Maybe they're friends. T Lee asking, are AKUNA's options quoted on any major crypto exchange? Like, I'm reading between the lines here, Andrew. I think what he or she are asking for here is, can he go on, let's say, a Coinbase or a BitMEX, one of those ones, and see your options quotes? Why don't you explain to T. Lee and maybe some of the other audience may be confused about how they can go about actually getting your quotes and where they can get them, and maybe what kind of size they need to do?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the OTC stuff that we do is very much an institutional focus there. So, there's some pretty strict size requirements, but we do participate. There are a couple of smaller exchanges that offer options. LedgerX, a US-based exchange, and Deribit is Dutch. And, the volumes are small there, but we do participate from time to time. So, you never know, it might be us on the other side of the trade. I'd encourage your listeners to perhaps check out those two exchanges.
Yeah, and those grow and take off, and they get a lot of demand from listeners like T. Lee, and they start seeing some requests for that. Maybe we'll see the exchanges get off their rears and actually maybe list some options, and then we wouldn't have to just do OTC. It would be, you could see listed options quotes outside of places like some of these esoteric venues where you have to go right now to get this stuff. Let's hit on this. We kind of answered this already, but let's just formally do it for Angela and anyone else who has it on their brain here. Angela Simpson wants to know, what is the Bitcoin put skew telling us right now? Are the size players loading up protection on any particular trade? Like I said, we kind of touched on this earlier. It sounds like 3,000 is probably the leader, but you're surprised at how much volume you're seeing on some farther out strikes, like 2,000 and 1,000. Is that a pretty fair synopsis there, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the protection, people want protection in those strikes, but I think from the hedges that I mentioned previously, that's where you see risk reversals. So, right now the 3K strike's certainly in play for those kind of trades. And more it is those people with a hedging function who we're seeing in the market. I think on the speculation side, so at the end of 2017, there was a highly publicized options trade. Ari Paul of Block Tower, he bought the 50,000 call for I think he paid about 3,600 for the 50,000 end of December 2018 call, which got a lot of publicity at the time. And as I mentioned back then, that was mainly what we were seeing was crypto funds and various speculators. But more and more we're seeing people with a hedging function come into the market, and the skew is starting to reflect that. a lot of interest in risk reversals at the moment.
I think I and a lot of people viewed that as a PR expense on his part, right? I don't think he ever saw that option coming into fruition in the near term, but he got a lot of ink out of it, didn't he? So that was maybe...
Yeah, I mean, $1 million of premium, I think it was.
Yeah.
But, maybe it was a good trade.
Not a cheap one, but then you put out a press release to all the major outlets out there, get as much ink as he did. It probably would be pretty expensive there as well. So maybe at the end of the day, he considers it a trade worth doing. Of course, now in hindsight, it doesn't look the best, so maybe that kind of backfired a bit, but still interesting stuff. All right, we got time for one more. Let's go. We'll put Tron on the back burner for next week. A lot to get to there. Let's go instead to Laz. You got weird names this week. Laz B. Fay. He wants to know, this is actually a good one for you here, Andrew. What crypto do you think is the next one that might merit some options action? So you kind of mentioned already, you guys used to do the Ether options. These days, not so much. What was it that maybe prompted you guys to dial it back a little bit? Was it the aforementioned information asymmetry? Was it just volume? Was it something else therein? And then also, kind of what the listener wants to know, are there others on your radar right now that you think might merit options in the future?
Yeah, so certainly we have been trading ETH options for a while. Volume at one point in the middle of last year, we're probably seeing even more demand for the ETH options than we were for the Bitcoin options, especially, ETH had a lot of crypto assets fell last year, but ETH had a really precipitous fall. And the ICOs that we've kind of touched on a little bit, a lot of them had huge treasury balances of ETH and suddenly realized that, if they were going to fulfill and deliver on, their very ambitious plans and goals, that they were going to need to convert some of that Ethereum into dollars to pay the bills. And we saw, big interest both in selling that Ethereum down OTC, but also trying to protect it through ETH options. So I think in terms of what we'll see from, whether it's a LedgerX or a Deribit, one of the exchanges, the internet exchanges that are trading Bitcoin options at the moment, I think at this stage it's Ethereum that will be next. But, fingers crossed some new asset comes out of the woodwork and explodes, and we see a heap of interest in that too. But yeah, certainly Ethereum is number 2 for us on the options side, and we don't have any short-term plans to start trading more options OTC, but I expect that'll happen later in the year.
All right, Andrew. That music, unfortunately, means we're out of time. We're done. But, wow, time flies when you're talking all things crypto. That was certainly a fun one. Again, we welcome it. So glad you guys are enjoying the program. We love your feedback, your questions. Keep them coming. We do love to hear from you guys. If you have suggestions for products, I'm sure we're going to hit up all the Tron folks. Going to hit us up, so go ahead, hit us up. As well as everyone who keeps asking about Bitcoin options skew. Hopefully we gave you enough of that talk a little bit for at least till next show. And all the other products you want to see, guests you want to see. We're going to start having some more guests rotate onto the program soon as well, so stay tuned for that. Should be fun. This is going to be our usual time, I think, going forward. A little bit later than I know you guys are used to, but we have a much more international clientele and audience for this show as well, so they like to play on a little bit different hours. But of course, don't worry, you can get it on all of the major podcast platforms as well. It's up there on your iTunes, it's up there on your TuneIns, your Stitchers, all the major platforms. Google Podcasts, you can find it, get it. You can also get it, of course, the optionsinsider.com, our mobile app. I'm sure the guys at AKUNA are going to have it up and running on their site as well one of these days as well. So lots of good places for you guys to get the crypto rundown. And Andrew, Before we go here, listeners, they want to learn more about what you guys are doing at AKUNA, or maybe you have a little bit of a hint, something that's coming down the pike from you guys you want to share with them. Now is the time, sir. The floor is yours.
I'd say certainly if you've got an interest in trading crypto assets or trading derivatives generally, we are hiring across the board, especially in Chicago and Sydney. So check out our website, akunacapital.com. Have a look at the careers page, and we'd love to see a heap of applications flooding in.
And this connection is any indication you guys, at the very least, have a fantastic IT department over there, because you sound like you're right down the street here, as opposed to in Sydney there, Andrew. So keep it up. Thanks for joining me today. And thanks to all of you out there for downloading and streaming and subscribing to the program, for sending in all your questions and feedback. Keep them coming, and we'll see you next time for more of the Crypto Rundown.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by AKUNA Capital. Known as the new wave in tech and trading, AKUNA is a leading derivatives market maker in traditional asset classes. As one of the first trading firms to make markets on Bitcoin futures, AKUNA is also proud to be an innovator in the cryptocurrency space. Through a collaborative flow of knowledge between developers, quants, and traders, AKUNA designs and implements their own low-latency technologies, trading strategies, and mathematical models. To learn more about our rapidly growing firm, please visit akunacapital.com. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.